Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to chapter number 2 now. Hope everything went well with the first chapter. I'm looking forward to this one. And I want to highlight that chapter 2 is one of the most foundational and important chapters that we will have in this course. So please pay very close attention. Make sure that you study these areas out well, in particular, the 5 forces analysis. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started with this. We'll follow the same format as before, that we'll go through a portion, have a question that you will discuss, and then we'll move on to the further sections. So here we are looking at the external environment. We're looking at opportunities and threats, industry competition, competitor analysis, everything that is happening outside the organization that can influence its strategy and influence its results. We have general dimensions, the general environment. This is the environment that all companies would find themselves in. All companies in a country, for example, have the same political leaders. They all have the same demographic makeup within their country. They have a lot of the same general environmental factors. And we would look at demographic, economic, political and legal, sociocultural, technological, global, and sustainable physical environment factors. To look into these a little bit more, to get a little bit more specific, the industry environment is a set of factors that directly influences a firm and its competitive actions and responses. What happens within the industry is not necessarily important for the rest of the industries or organizations within the same general environment. So here we look at the threat of new entrants, the power of suppliers and buyers, the threat of product substitutes, and the intensity of rivalry among competing firms. We will look at all of these things, and then also some more specific analysis where we'll be looking at competitors specifically. It's important to understand the firm's competitor environment, and this helps to build on to insights provided by studying the general and industry environments. So we look at the general environment, we look at the industry environment, and we look at the specific competitors. So the general industry and competitor environments moving forward, an analysis of the general environment focuses on environmental trends and their implications. The industry environment focuses on the factors and conditions influencing an industry's profitability potential. An analysis of competitors is focused on predicting competitors' actions, responses, and intentions. In combination, the results of these 3 analyses influence the firm's vision, mission, choice of strategies, and competitive actions and responses it will take to implement those strategies. So to cope with often ambiguous and incomplete environmental data and to increase understanding of the general environment, firms complete an external environmental analysis. There are 4 parts of this that we would need to pay attention to. One is scanning, just what's going on, reading the news, following those kinds of things, and then monitoring those things that turn out to be important. We forecast trends of what we think will happen in the future, and then we assess what we can do about it. So identifying opportunities and threats is an important objective of studying the general environment. An opportunity is a condition in the general environment that, if exploited effectively, helps a company reach strategic competitiveness. A threat is a condition in the general environment that may hinder a company's efforts to achieve strategic competitiveness. There may be some situations that are both opportunities and threats, because what is a threat to you is probably also a threat to your competitors. And if they are threatened and you can take advantage of that situation, you might find a way to put yourself into a better position because you understood and reacted to the threat and created an opportunity out of that. Effective scanning, monitoring, forecasting, and assessing are vital to the firm's efforts to recognize and evaluate opportunities and threats. I want to make a side note here. If you've ever done a SWOT analysis, this is an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that a firm may face. The strengths and weaknesses are internal to the organization. We will cover that a lot more in chapter 3. When we're looking at the external environment, we are looking specifically at the opportunities and threats. So, for example, I sometimes will read papers written by students where they will say that a company's industry is a strength of the company. And that's not true. A company's industry is the same industry that the company's competitors are competing in. A strength is what allows the company to take advantage of opportunities that are external to the company. So very important that we are very clear on the strengths and weaknesses internal to the company and the opportunities and threats, which are external. So scanning entails the study of all segments in the general environment. Through scanning, firms identify early signals of potential changes in the general environment, and also allows the firm to detect changes that are already underway. An example of this, if you think back to the beginning of COVID, there were some organizations and some people that had been following the news of this new virus in China, not really knowing what would happen, but kind of seeing what was going on and realizing, and things like this have happened from time to time in various parts of the world. But by identifying that that was happening, some organizations started to take advantage of that. It was actually very early that Camping World, the CEO of Camping World, was in an interview, and this was before everything really went down in the United States, but he said, you know, we've got something going on. People are going to not want to do their traditional, all of their traditional vacations. So they're going to spend their money coming and buying my campers and going camping. Well, it turns out that he was right, but he made that forecast. He made that actually ahead of time. So he was able to do that scanning, was monitoring things, and he was able to forecast before a lot of people were even really aware of what was going on. But it started with him and many others scanning what was going on. Monitoring, of course, is following the trend and seeing what's actually happening. So observing environmental changes to see if an important trend is emerging from among those spotted through scanning. Forecasting, as the Camping World CEO did, when forecasting, analysts develop feasible projections of what might happen and how quickly as a result of the events and trends detected through scanning and monitoring. Forecasting events and outcomes accurately is challenging. There are people who dedicate their career to trying to forecast what may happen to help firms and organizations to make decisions. And finally, assessing. This comes down to the question of why does it matter? So when assessing, the objective is to determine the timing and significance of the effects of environmental changes and trends that have been identified. The intent of assessment is to specify the implications of understanding the general environment. So your first question that I want you to do is list two major changes that have affected the US economy in the past few years, other than COVID. If I don't say that, every one of you will say COVID. Do something else, but describe the economic and business consequences of each of those two major changes.